Hi, this is Cheryl back with you from Farmhouse Frugally. Today I have a couple of very simple flips from some thrift items, or in this case, dump items that I got. I love this basket. I absolutely love the little curly Q thingies on it. I love the color, but unfortunately, somebody had dumped what looks like a green food coloring of sorts on it, and I really didn't want to paint it. So I thought I would see if the dark antiquing wax might cover the bulk of the green, at least in the front. I'm going to have it hanging so it doesn't really make too much difference in the back, but I wanted to make sure that this color would at least hide that imperfection so that I could keep this more natural looking. I just think it goes better. It's warmer, and it did a fairly decent job. I took my wax brush, brushed on all the wax all over that box, the handle, the rim, and just a little bit of the inside so that you wouldn't see the color difference. It did take away the orangey tone to it, which I don't always mind. I have a fair amount of that in my home since my floors are oak. But in this case, definitely didn't want the green. I could have painted it white. First black, then white, then, had the tips of that sanded. I thought of that would be very farmhouse, but I thought I'd just like to keep it natural. So in the back, you can definitely see the green, but in the front, it wasn't too bad. So then I just put some pieces of floral foam in the bottom and then took some pieces of an old arrangement that I had thrifted in the past. Now, I had some beautiful pomegranates off of that arrangement and some greens that looked just like a piece of cedar out back, and then a couple pine cones. So keeping it kind of Christmas, and a little green moss to cover the foam. Gluing anything because obviously I can just pull that out and fill that with anything in the future. So that was all I did to this. It was very simple. And then just took a piece of a Christmassy colored wired ribbon, made just a very simple bow with 2 loops and then a little finger loop in the center, dovetailed the ends of that ribbon and wired that onto the side. And then when I was done, it did feel a little bit dark, so I thought I would take some paint, just a little bit of white chalk paint, and go over some of that to make it look a little bit more like snow. That is not something that I typically do, but this being chalk paint will wash right off if I don't like it. And in the end, decided I'm not in love with it on the pomegranate. I'll leave it for the season, but will end up wiping it off of that and probably using that on a wreath or on something else in the future, since I have at least 4 or 5 of those beautiful pomegranates. But I liked it with the pillow that I had on my black bench. I thought that was cute, and just a little pop in the corner of something Christmassy. And then I put it up in my kitchen on the beautiful blue hutch that I have there, since this is the first time I have ever put red in my kitchen, a burgundy red, and I absolutely love the pops of red here and there. Just give me a really great Christmassy feeling when I go in there. And then stuck it on the grandfather's clock, which actually is where it's staying for now. I like the contrast. Now, I do want to remind you that this is a thrift flip collab with these 3 lovely ladies. I'll have all their details in the description box and a playlist for anybody else who has joined. So if this is something you ever want to do, we do it the 3rd Thursday of every month. So check that out. Now, that takes me on to the next. We had gotten several of these little wire spools at the dump, and they're made out of solid wood, and I love using them. I've done a number of them. I'll show you in a minute some of the ones that I had completed in the past. Generally, they just need a good washing, sometimes just a quick sand if they're splintery. This one was not, so it was pretty quick and easy to go ahead and just cover it with one quick almost coat. I didn't have to cover the thing completely. I just wanted to get some white background on there for the Annie Sloan white, pure white chalk paint. And then just to get around the edges as well, and then let that dry. I love chalk paint because it dries in 5 or 6 minutes. And then I took it outside, quickly sprayed it with Rust-Oleum 2 times just to give it a finish so that I would be able to decoupage over it. Otherwise, it would reactivate the chalked paint. So once that was dry in a couple of minutes, I just took the decoupage and went ahead and put a very thin coat over the top because I am just decoupaging this tissue paper. I got this music tissue paper years ago and I have so much of it left and I love it, especially as a background for something. So one thin coat, and then once that was on, I don't mind the wrinkles. In fact, I love the wrinkles, but if you don't like it, you can certainly smooth that down real good with a credit card or a piece of wrapped up saran wrap. Cut out the holes, Mod Podge those down, and then put one very thin layer of Mod Podge over the top of this. Depending on what you're going to do with this, you may want to Mod Podge it a couple of times or actually even spray coat it, like if you think you're going to put a drink on it or something that could get it wet. And then once that decoupage was still wet, I had printed off this rice paper from the Graphics Fairy. It's a postcard, and I just wet that, gave it a rough edge by it's almost like a fibrous paper, this rice paper. I love using it for decoupage. And I did all the edges to make them really more rustic. And then once I got that all done, I just laid it right on top of that wet. Sorry, I'm out of frame here. Laid it down on the wet decoupage, and then one more time decoupaged over the top of that. Now, I do let this dry completely before I take the edges off because I've tried before, because I'm very impatient, and it rips. So this time I knew enough, leave it alone, let it dry good. Once that's completely dry, then I want to do 2 things here just for mine, but if you don't like this look, you don't have to. And I also grabbed a couple of corks. Remember, I had gotten a million of these at the dump. I can't even believe it. They make great little feet and riser feet and such. Here's one that I did at Christmas time a couple weeks ago out of that same type of spool. Here's one I did last spring, and I love that with my stamps, my IOD stamps. And here's one with a transfer. So those are some that I have done in the past. This one here, once it was dry, I just took a sanding block, went around the edges in a downward motion, and peeled off the excess tissue paper to get that finished. Now, once that is done, I glued the 4 little corks on the bottom 4 feet. These work great as feet, and they glue really well with hot glue. And then I took a little bit of dark antiquing wax. You don't have to do this if you don't like this, but I love my house to have a little touch of that. And I really think it came out spectacular. Here it is again in that kitchen on that hutch. I just love the postcard over the music notes. I just think that looks really sweet. So good for all 4 seasons. Not something that I have to have for Christmas, but works with Christmas. And thought that just came out really nice. So if you ever find a round piece, it is a great thing to make a quick and easy riser. For me, this was pretty much free, the cost of a piece of rice paper. And then I tried it with the wreath and candle on top, which I think is much more traditional and lovely for a little centerpiece or just on a coffee table. And then I absolutely love it here, stacked with another one on top of it, and the wooden book Christmas tree that I had made a couple of weeks ago. Check that video out. And then that takes me on to this monstrosity of a tray I got for free at the dump, but it has this rather large hole in the bottom. So I took some spackling mud filler and filled that wood with some tape on the bottom, and then let that dry completely overnight. And then took that off and sanded it as best I could, which, you know, kind of hard to do, but I got, you know, the bulk of that so that I would be able to do something with it. Again, I was hoping not to have to paint this piece. It goes really well with my coffee table, and I thought I would try the antiquing wax and see if it would cover the wood without that looking like I covered the wood with antiquing wax. So I just took a rather large paintbrush to start with and a paper towel and just went in and out and around and was pleasantly surprised. Now, it was a little darker than I wanted it to be, but I was very surprised at how well it covered over that spackling. So then when that bottom part was done, I took my antiquing wax with warm water and just went over it to spread out some of that wax and make that look less splotchy and a little more even, almost like a stain. And love the way, first of all, this helped the wood, which was very dry, and also continued to cover up that spackling and spread out some of that darker wax. And I really was just so pleased with it. That's kind of the look I was going for. Now, I had thought about decoupage, I had thought about transfers, I had thought about paint, and a number of different things I could have done with this. But I really was hoping to keep it natural if I could. So I was really glad that I was able to. I had just the place in mind. This is a pretty large tray. Make a great dining room table centerpiece, and I might do something with it for Christmas. But for now, I thought I'd just put it on that coffee table that if you've stuck around with me for a little bit, you saw I got at the dump for free, made out of what looks like an orangey antique pine color. So that's why I was okay with this orangey color. And that is all I did with this. I put a cloth in it and a few little items around it. This one here is a little Christmassy for the season, but I love the fact that I kept it neutral because now it is something I can use all year round for any number of things. And then I also decided to just show you a couple of different ways that I could style this. Here it is with that same tree and some of the other trees I made, the bottle bush trees I made in an earlier video. And here it is a little bit more springy with a bird and a candle. And then this beautiful, my favorite book set I have ever made. I have a video of that as well. Check out a lot of my other videos. This one was simple. Please don't judge my my channel on this one. I didn't have a lot of time this week. But if you liked it at all, please give me a thumbs up. I would love it if you'd subscribe and stick around. And I will see you in the next one. Thanks for stopping by. Take care.